If you want to communicate to the world that you've had plenty of horizontal escapades, this is it.
Even though they're a Toyota and they have an excellent reputation for reliability.
Look at this for space. You'd store humans back here. Don't, but you could. And I can feel any levels of desirability or coolness just leaving my body with every passing kilometre. Okay, in this video, we're going to be taking you through everything that can go wrong with these things. We're going to show you how they've aged, what they're like to drive. Most importantly, we're going to tell you if you should buy one or not. But before all of that, let's set the scene here. Depending on where you're watching this from, you may know this as the Tarago, the Previa, or the Estima. Or is it Estima? In fact, you know what? One of you guys is going to rip me off about how I say that word, so I think we just lean into the weird pronunciation. And we're going to call this the East Time A. Anyway, no matter what it's called, Toyota's hugely popular 7 to 8 seat people mover has been around since the early 1990s. But in this video, we're just going to be focusing on the third generation XR50. And even though the East Time A, Previa and Tarago are technically the same thing, there are some subtle differences between the different nameplates. For example, the Tarago is the locally delivered Australian example, the East Time A is the Japanese grey import, and the Previa, it populates other markets. For example, the Estima is generally better equipped for lower money than the locally delivered Tarago. However, they can be more challenging to insure and even finance. Now, engine-wise, you're going to have a choice between a 6-cylinder or 2 4-cylinder petrols. They're all petrol-powered. One of those 4 cylinders has also embraced Toyota's renowned hybrid technology. Actually, fun fact on the engines and a lot of the mechanicals, they share a whole bunch of components with locally delivered Toyota and Lexus models, so getting parts should be a breeze, as should the labour to fix it and fit it all. Now, depending on the model and the trim spec, power can be sent to either the front wheels or all 4 wheels. However, those 4-wheel drive models, we wouldn't recommend going rock crawling or any kind of serious adventuring with it. However, that, depending on the model and trim spec statement, that can really open up a can of worms. First of all, Toyota updated these right across their 13-year life cycle, most substantially in 2009 and 2016. Then as far as trim specs go, the locally delivered Taragos are available in 3 different flavours. The Japanese imports, like any good JDM import, it can be a minefield of different flavours and variants and submodels. Currently in Australia, there are 5 different variants available. Internationally, way more than that. But even what these come with, that can vary depending on example to example. Not to mention, plenty of these land totally modified, so who knows what you're going to get. Plus, Toyota produced well cab variants with different levels of accessibility for those with special needs. But the good news is, no matter which Estima you're looking at, they are all loaded with kit. Then when you throw the Tarago variants into the mix, you're going to be able to get everything from just a really simple people mover through to luxury 4-wheeled accommodation. And the same can be said for what these cost. At the low end of the spectrum, around about $5,000 will get you into a pretty tired old Tarago. $40,000 to $45,000 at the other end of the spectrum, you're going to end up getting a 4-wheeled private jet. However, if you are looking at getting finance on any of the imported versions, if you go to a traditional lender, they might end up charging you a premium because that's what they do with imports. So to avoid that unscrupulous behaviour, click on the driver link down there. Look, I'm not going to bore you with all of the details, but Driver exists to get you the best possible deal on car finance. That includes if you're going to refinance your car, because you could save thousands. Hit the link down there. Plus, doing all of that via that link is going to get you $150 worth of free fuel. Now, fun fact, this thing is actually narrower and only about that much longer than the current generation Toyota RAV4. So it's not as big as you think. Actually, speaking about not being as big as you think, let's talk about sex appeal. Isn't it funny that a car that has basically 0 sex appeal is something of a beacon to the fact that you've had lots of it? Look, this is not a sexy car, but if you want to communicate to the world that you've had plenty of horizontal escapades, this is it. Now inside, as far as the features go, even in the early base spec models, you're going to get everything you'd expect. Dual zone climate control, power mirrors, power windows, cruise control, plus all of this and more. However, move into a higher spec Estima, and the amount of stuff you get for what you pay is incredible. We're talking everything from powered sliding doors and tailgate to captain's chairs with retractable leg rests, powered folding 3rd row seating, multi-zone climate control, heated seats, full leather interiors, a premium 11-speaker sound system. Honestly, the list just goes on and on. And as I mentioned before, Estimas are generally better equipped than Taragos for the same cash, sometimes less. Now, as far as phone connectivity goes, most examples will have Bluetooth, and from 2019, Toyota fitted Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You're not going to get that on the the earlier models. However, just like the owner of this car has done, it is easy to fit with an aftermarket system. Also, this just brings the entire interior up to date as far as design and aesthetics go as well. Now, many owners highly recommend fitting this level of tech because you can also therefore get a reversing camera and other tech as well, because as is Toyota infotainment systems, they often suck. Now, if you do need all of the details of which one gets what levels of tech, go to redriven.com and check out the completely free Redriven cheat sheet. It's going to answer all of your questions. Now, elsewhere inside, design-wise, look, you can tell that this was designed to be functional and family utilitarian over wow and amazing design features, but it's still a really nice place to be. Also, it feels so much larger than it actually is. And you can tell that this isn't the interior of just some tarted up delivery van trying to be luxurious. In fact, you know what? It feels like if a Camry and a Land Cruiser made sweet love and had a baby, this would be the resulting interior. Now, that 2019 update, it did change the overall design quite substantially. And with this thing being around for so many years, over so many different variants, the interior, it's going to feel different between different variations as far as materials and whatnot goes. For example, some of the early Taragos, they can feel pretty cheap and nasty these days. More recent Esteemas, the really high-end ones, they feel genuinely premium. This being a 2010 G edition, or G-Spec, G something, yeah, it's nice. It's, again, no wow factor going on, but it's a bloody pleasant place to be. But as you'd expect, practicality is outrageous. Here we go. First of all, little glove box cubby hole up here. Excellent size glove box down there. Another cubby hole just here. You've got flip out cup holders, which luckily they do hold small pretentious coffees, the ones that you should be drinking, like a double ristretto or a macchiato, something like that. You've got a little slide out drawer here, which I unfortunately think might be a ashtray and cigarette lighter. Disgusting. You've also got an occupant mirror to keep an eye on the shenanigans in the back. You've got excellent sized door bins. You've got another little hidey hole here. So much space between the seats. Fantastic. Oh, also, captain's chairs with adjustable height armrests, and they are so comfortable. Ergonomics in general, spot on. Now, as far as wear and tear goes, obviously every one of these are going to be different in wear and tear. This particular example, it's 14 years old, it's got nearly 100,000 Ks on it, it is used on a daily basis. What wear and tear? The seats, the fabric, still in fantastic condition. All the door cards, excellent. The plastics are a little bit scratchy, but that's a good thing for a car like this because it means it's more resilient to use. Even the carpet is still feeling very, very plush. Texture on the steering wheel is great. It doesn't feel like a new car, but it's pretty bloody close to it. Even with how Toyota have used the materials is genius. There's this really lovely soft touch kind of velour feel here, but they haven't put it in the high traffic areas. So this section remains plastic, so it's easy to maintain, whereas this part, you retain that nice velour feel. Actually, there's something else on the wear and tear. When we're doing the research with the owners groups, many owners have come from other brands of people mover, and they've all stated that this is a far more resilient interior to arsehole children's abusive behaviour. And then in the back seat, I'm exactly 6 centimetres shorter than Yellow Wiggle Greg. This is in my driving position, and holy shit, this is fantastic. These seats are so comfortable. Plus, they're captain's chairs, which is fantastic. And then you can recline them. Oh, hang on. Recline them. That is unbelievably comfortable. Plus, you can slide them. Oh, no, wrong button. Hang on. Which button's the button? There we go. Slide them back and forth. Plus, leg rests. My legs are a bit long for that, but how good is that? So much space back here, and honestly, it is so comfortable. And then as far as practicality goes, good little cup holder, door bin kind of thing here, a spot to hang your backpack after school, map pockets, 2 cup holders and a desk, but that also retracts away. Where's the thing? Where's the lever? There we go, that retracts away. Air vents and your own air conditioning control back here. Also, this example has a flip down screen. I don't know how up to date that tech is, but you'd be able to replace that and put a current 4K screen in. And then wear and tear in the back seat. As the owners groups mentioned, these things are so resilient. This is used all of the time, and you would never know. Door cards are in fantastic condition. The seats, super plush. Carpets are good. They're all going to vary from example to example, but this one, bloody amazing. And then getting into the third row, you've got options. You can get out and get in from the sides, or just wander through the hallway in the middle of the car. And you're back here. How's that? Now in the third row, I'm exactly 5 centimetres taller than Blue Wiggle Anthony. This is in a pretty reasonable position. It's got heaps of room to go forward, but even in this position, I've still got knee room. The seats aren't too uncomfortable. Kids back here would be totally fine, but even adults, it's pretty good. I mean, even practicality back here. You've got 4 cup holders, little storage bins here. Awesome. Oh, and you're in air vents and lights. And also, because the glass house is quite large, you don't feel claustrophobic back here. And wear and tear, again, like the first 2 rows, none. It's incredible. Now, this is where these things destroy 7-seat SUVs for practicality, because if you think this is the only luggage space you get when the 3rd row is in place, oh, no. There is far more. Look at this. Remove this guy. How is that? Look at this for space. You'd store humans back here. Don't, but you could. Actually, just on the practicality, especially back here and there, I'm incredibly well versed with the practicality of these because my job before talking to you about cars on camera was as a touring drummer and percussionist. So I've spent thousands of hours basically living out of these and putting PAs and drums in them. They're so incredibly practical. Even with these things put away, check this out. Even putting the 3rd row away, so easy. Like, how is this for space? And there's still plenty of leg room here. And then with the seats moved all the way forward, you've got all this space. But because these are sort of modular, you can design the interior to whatever your needs are. Here's a shot. Okay, so what's it like to drive? I tell you what, it's nothing like driving a commercial van or a bus, and that is wonderful. See, plenty of people movers like this are based on commercial van platforms, and no matter how much carpet or soft touch plastic you throw at it, it always feels like driving a commercial van. And then the other people movers that aren't based on commercial vans, they often feel just big, like you're driving a bus. This thing, however, it feels like it's taken the best driving characteristics of a Toyota Camry and a Toyota RAV4 and just squished them together. The raised seating position and just glass everywhere, it gives you this confidence when you're driving. The parameters are all super easy to judge when parking, even steering, ride, handling, all that sort of stuff, just bloody good. It honestly just feels like a really well-sorted car, and that gives you confidence when driving. Some 7-seat SUVs, they can feel top-heavy, like they're going to roll or pitch or even roll over if the worst were to happen, but this doesn't. It feels solid, and I keep saying it, but just confident. Also, this being the least powerful of the engines on offer, I thought it would feel quite sluggish. But it doesn't. It's not a performance car by any means, and if you load it up with a stack of people and heaps of stuff, you will feel the lack of horses under your right foot, but in the real world, in real conditions, it's fine. Interestingly, owners of the 6-cylinder variants claim that those things are quite capable of providing some embarrassment to opponents at the odd traffic light Grand Prix as well. And then with the hybrid models, I mean, talk about fuel efficiency. Many owners claim that they're seeing less than 6 litres per 100 Ks. Even this non-hybrid 2.4, it's seeing just over 8. I mean, even sounds-wise, you'd think it would rattle and echo and squeak like a van, but it doesn't. It sounds and it feels refined. You know what, I've spent maybe thousands of hours of my life driving these things when touring, and every time I get behind the wheel, I just forget how pleasant they are to drive. Really, the only negative I can come up with is that I can feel any levels of desirability or coolness just leaving my body with every passing kilometre. But maybe that has more to do with me and nothing to do with the car. Anyway, look, we are talking a family hauler here, so we do need to talk about safety features. And it's honestly pretty good news, even if you're looking at the earlier examples. But to take you through the safety features, it does seem only right that we have someone that would generally occupy the seats back there, take you through what these have. It's my mate Ruby.
So at the very least, you can expect 7 airbags, ABS, electric traction and stability control, and obviously seatbelts. However, move up the range and the safety features are impressive. Everything from side curtain airbags for the 3rd row to multiple ISOFIX points to Toyota's Safety Sense technology. That includes pre-collision systems, automatic high beam and lane departure alerts. Even in crash tests, it has been awarded a 5-star rating. Honestly, I could go on forever about the safety take, but if you do need all the details, head to redriven.com. Everything you need is on the cheat sheet.
Okay, what goes wrong with these things? The first thing we need to talk about is what can go wrong with the history of the car. Now, first of all, look, Aussie Taragos are less susceptible to this, but with the imports, we do know of plenty of examples where the odometers have been swapped out to show lower kilometres. Quite often, owners don't even know this has happened, so they end up selling a car that is actually far more used than what even they think. Plus, import histories can often be impossible to obtain, let alone verify. So when you're buying, make sure that comes with an auction report, an export certificate, and a compliance plate, and make sure all those details match. And this doesn't go just for Esteemas, this is for any import. If the seller can't give you those documents, or those documents seem dodgy in any way, do not buy that car. With these, there are plenty of legit ones on the market. But this next one is specific to the Esteema, and it is a critical one to check out. Some importers have brought these in under a 2 to 4 seat camper compliance plate, and they've never gone around to changing it to a 7 to 8 seat people mover compliance plate. But the problem is, if it's complianced as a 2 or 4 seat camper and you've got more than 4 people on board and you have an accident, there's a good chance that the insurance company will void your insurance. No insurance because it's complianced incorrectly. So please, please make sure it is complianced to what the car actually is. But what actually goes wrong with the car itself? Let's start with the exterior. Yeah, not a whole lot, honestly. The headlights can yellow a little bit, but that's easily fixed. There are plenty of tutorials online. Now, some models fitted with the full, panoramic sunroof kind of thing. There are some reports that those sunroofs over time can leak. It's basically the silicone sealer, it goes bad. To fix it, you've got to remove the entire sunroof, you've got to take the clips out, you've got to remove the sealer, put it all back in again. It is a big job. Luckily, it's not that common. Now, some owners have reported that the powered doors can play up a little bit, either not working or sort of stopping halfway. It can always be manually overridden, so you can just do it yourself. Not a major common problem, and apparently even when it does happen, it's not that hard to fix. Also, a hot tip from the owners groups, if you're replacing the battery in the remote, make sure you use a Panasonic battery. Apparently if you use cheap batteries from your grocery store, it reduces the actual range and they can wear out really quickly. Actually, just on the owners, a massive thank you to Ridwan and his wonderful family for lending us their Esteema. Legends. Also, the owners groups for these things. Wow, we deal with owners groups every week. You guys are genuinely some of the friendliest and most helpful we've ever worked with. And if it wasn't for you, we couldn't make videos like this. Actually, also just on those owners groups, it does seem to make sense that a vehicle like this just attracts good, honest people with a complete lack of pretense, doesn't it? Also, like plenty of other cars, worn-out wiper blades are just bloody dangerous. Luckily, WiperTech has you covered. Guys, the blades are easy to order online, they're easy to fit, they're shipped to your door, also for free via that link, and you're going to get 15% off, and they are genuinely some of the best wiper blades we've ever used. Now, common problems inside. It's pretty much like the outside. Not much really goes wrong. Some owners have reported some weird electrical gremlins, but it's due to dodgy aftermarket accessories being fitted in Japan. Some examples with the power-operated third row seating, that third row seating can fail. It's actually just a tiny little spring that breaks, super easy and cheap to fix. But inside, yeah, that's about it for problems. But mechanically, what can go wrong with these things? Well, I'm really sorry, I can't tell you because I'm not a qualified mechanic. Luckily, Jim is.
Even though they're a Toyota with an excellent reputation for reliability, and I can't remember the last time I ever had one towed into the workshop that was actually broken down, there are still a few things you need to look out for. Now, the non-hybrid 4-cylinder, look, there's a very serious and common problem with that with oil consumption. The problem there is by design. The oil rings in those engines were just not up to the task. There were ongoing recall campaigns and in some markets extended warranties too. The problem here is you can't actually tell a lot of the times in a pre-purchase inspection if you have an oil consumption issue. Your best bet to mitigate the risk is make sure it has a faultless service history, but there's no real way of knowing if you've got an oil burner or not. So realistically, you're probably better off getting the hybrid or the V6. Now the 4-cylinder in the hybrid, typically you won't have any oil consumption problems there unless it's been terribly neglected, but even then they're usually not too bad. If you really want to get fussy with these engines, there are some examples where they've had some head gasket issues, but not what you'd call a common problem. They do occasionally have issues with their EGR valve. A lot of Toyotas seem to have this issue. quite easy to diagnose. Sometimes the valve gets stuck open or closed. Typically not too hard to diagnose and relatively inexpensive to fix. Just on the hybrids, look, typically for Toyota, they have an excellent reputation for reliabilities. The batteries in them, we've talked about this before, they share the same architecture with a lot of the other Toyota and Lexus models. You can replace parts within the battery, and the batteries themselves are fairly available and not too expensive. So yeah, overall, arguably the best of all the hybrid setups. Now the V6 in these, in my opinion, I think that's the pick of the bunch. They do use a lot of fuel, so if that's a factor, maybe avoid it. Because the engines in these, they've been around for years, and they are arguably one of the most reliable petrol engines ever made. In the V6, some of the very early versions, if we're talking pre-09, they did have a few issues with an external oil supply pipe. Post-09, they changed it to a steel pipe and it was never an issue. And if you really want to nitpick, occasionally you see an issue with the oil control valve. Now that's the oil control valve that operates the variable valve timing gear. It's quite easy to diagnose, and sometimes it's just a blockage in the oil strainer to that. But I should mention it's really not a common problem at all. And like a lot of Toyota engines, these also have a fairly high threshold for neglect. Although a good service history is ideal, if it's missed a few services, it's probably not the end of the world. Other issues that are somewhat expensive that we see occasionally is with the air conditioning. Sometimes the evaporators can fail, the front and the rear. The front one is a bit of a nightmare because it's quite expensive to change. You've got to pull half the dash out to get at it, but I should mention it's not really an extremely common problem. And if you're looking to buy one of the imports, or if you have one, and if you're getting told that the repair costs can be more expensive because it's an import, typically that is actually bullshit. 98% of the mechanical components in these things are the same as the local domestic market, so it really shouldn't cost you any more.
So after all of that, should you buy one of these? Look, as long as its history checks out, my God, yes, you should buy one of these. In fact, you should buy one of these over pretty much any other people mover or even 7-seat SUV on the used market. A number of owners actually mentioned to us that they bought Esteemas because they were the only vehicles that fulfilled the immense laundry list of requirements their families needed. Every other option either lacked safety features, failed in terms of reliability and repair costs, felt like a van to drive, or was simply asking too much to buy. Look, I don't personally have any kids and I have no logical reason to buy one of these, but this thing is so good, it almost makes me want to have kids, or at least make more friends to justify buying one. Although, before you go diving in to buy one, maybe you should check out what the competition has to offer, like the Nissan Elgrand. Go watch that. But guys, if you went to buy one of these or one of those, what would you buy instead? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you next time. Now, sorry, don't burp into the shot, maybe that's a good way to start. Yeah, they are all loaded. One of these, but this thing is so good, it actually wants me, what?